Welcome into the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad.
He's still Zion Williamson. All 17 field goal attempts came in the paint. He's a man-child. We all know this. He attacks the basket with fervor. He's very powerful, scoring 23 points. He is an all-star. He is a game changer. When he is healthy, the New Orleans Pelicans can get to the finals. He's that lethal.
The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Welcome to the Pelicans Podcast. I am Joe Cardosi, joined by the hair-raising Jim Eichenhofer. Halloween approaches, my friend. I love that every day of the week you have shown up in costume. Love the Minions costume today. But I actually wore the same thing, not even in costume. That's just my normal outfit. I just love a good overall, man. Looking good, though.
I tell you, I don't want to make too many Phillies references as a Phillies fan, but the Phillies overall became a big thing during the playoffs, and I wonder if overalls are making a comeback in general, and you're doing your best to try to make that happen, so I give you respect for that.
I've been seeing the ladies wearing overalls, and I was like, you know what, maybe it's back. I want to look like a working man, but people just point and laugh at me. I guess you're supposed to wear something under the overalls. I don't know. I don't know how it works, Jim, but I'm in here and I'm safe with you now. That's I feel better. You know what also makes me feel better? The Pelicans are undefeated, my friend. The unbeaten Pels are 2-0.
Yes, what a great first week of the season. There's actually only 3 teams left in the Western Conference that do not have a loss. I kind of want to hesitate to use the word undefeated because it's like, 2-0 doesn't really count as undefeated.
Maybe we get to.
Maybe one more game, I'll say like the undefeated New Orleans Pelicans.
There we go.
But between Denver, which is off to a great start, looking very difficult to beat. Dallas is 2-0, and the Pelicans. That's it. Those are the only 3 teams left in the West that haven't lost a game. I mean, we knew the Western Conference would be formidable and difficult, and it's played out that way at least through the first 5-6 days of the season where everybody is kind of knocking off everyone else.
Well, I started off the program with it, just a little bit of the national Pels hype that's starting to seep in. I don't want to be petty. I don't want to get ahead of my skis, but boy, it's nice to hear people talking about us as if we exist and are a force in the NBA instead of just a team they remember, at the end if we're doing well.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the opposition. I mean, you've beaten 2 teams that both made the playoffs last year. Memphis was a 2 seed in the West.
Yeah.
The Knicks, I think, were a 5 seed, but they made it to the second round before they were knocked off by Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. You've beaten 2 really good teams. I feel like Monday's game is another case where, if you get a win, there's going to be whatever the attention is nationally to the Pelicans. I think if they win tonight, it's going to multiply a ton. Sure. This is a minor media side note, but I've always noticed this with the way programming is that if you win a weekday, if weekend games kind of get lost a little bit because there's so much other stuff going on. So a Monday night win against Golden State will probably have 15 times as much of a factor as a Saturday win against the Knicks. No disrespect to the Knicks.
But it would feel so much better just because of so many eyes being on the Warriors and to be able to show people, hey, the Pelicans are here too. Knock, knock. Mm-hmm. It would be great to see. Now we should also qualify. We get a little bit of good luck as well because the Knicks were coming off a second night of a back-to-back road stretch there, and we are catching the Warriors on a quick turnaround tonight. So let's hope we can catch them on some not-so-fresh legs.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of a break in the schedule. It's funny because the, first home game, like you said, team comes in back-to-back. Second home game, team comes in back-to-back. Third home game against Detroit on Thursday. They also have a back-to-back. They play Wednesday. However, it's less of an advantage because New Orleans also plays Wednesday, and so Thursday is the second night of a back-to-back. Yep. But, yeah, I mean, this will be a good test against the Warriors. Good news, bad news, I guess. Good news is that the fans are going to get to see Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green play.
Yeah.
Bad news is that for the first time in a while, you're going to see a full-strength Golden State team, which is going to be much more difficult to beat than the team that the Pelicans
The good news for the fans is the bad
year.
News for the Pelicans as a team, basically.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm more than happy to take a win in any fashion, in any form, especially, we're hungry. We want to get in the playoffs. We want to win a bunch of games. But yeah, the team that Golden State put on the floor that in last November that lost by 42, I believe it was. I need to get my calculator out for that. that it's not going to be that team at all tonight. So you're going to get to see the Warriors team that won the championship in 2022.
No, I mean, you get to see the Warriors kind of feeling themselves. I don't know if you saw Steph Curry kind of clowning Dylan Brooks. And just seeing Dylan Brooks humiliated in pants, it just makes me feel good. But they are going to be coming in feeling themselves, even if it is off a back-to-back. They are the Warriors we know and have feared now. And this will be a good, real test of this Pelicans team, man. I'm really excited about this matchup.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm sure Steph Curry enjoys the heck out of whatever you described he did against Dylan Brooks.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was a pretty heated rivalry between the Grizzlies and the Warriors the last couple of years. So now that Dylan Brooks is at a different location and a different address, I'm sure a lot of that carries over.
Just chef's kiss to that move last night. Another one of my favorite things, not Pelicans related, but I did see it when I was getting ready for the show here, and it was something I agreed with. I think we can both agree with. When you saw Jokic talking about Chet Holmgren, he said, "Get fatter." That was his advice. I think that's advice we can get behind, my friend. You know, if there's anything that we can tell athletes, you should get fatter.
Not only can we get behind that and support that, but we can also demonstrate it. We can lead by example as well.
Yes, bring some cupcakes, and I will give a demonstration, or anything really. I'm really an animal. But Jim and I catch us in the media room eating, and you don't want to get your hand in that scrum. You may lose a finger. So yeah, we agree with that, man. If Holmgren needs to get fatter, I think Jokic has proven that dad bods can still move in the NBA. You know?
Yeah, I think. Anyone that thought that, Denver's going to have a little championship hangover, they're going to be kind of fat, I guess, to metaphorically, not
Right.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's been proven to not be the case. I mean, they've come out and just dominated. They beat the Lakers pretty handily in the opener, and I didn't see the game, but at one point I saw they were up by 30-something over OKC. OKC's off to a really good start, but they really kind of quelled that in the Sunday afternoon game against the Thunder. So, impressive start for Denver.
So getting back to that Knicks game, man, that was a fun one. Again, that's a gritty team that has always given New Orleans fits. We talked about how physical they are. Our old friends, Mitchell Robinson, who's a NOLA native, Julius Randle, who we had with us for a bit. No slouches there.
Josh Hart, too.
Josh Hart, yes, exactly. Our old friend Josh Hart. So, man, it was good to see Jordan Hawkins' three balls starting to go in that game. It felt tenuous for a bit, even though, the final score may not show that. If you were watching that game, it felt touch and go for a bit.
Yeah, the Knicks made a little bit of a run. I wonder if you've been listening to a little bit too much Graph, because I wasn't that concerned. I mean, I kind of look at it like it was a long game, and the Pelicans, they got a little bit too comfortable maybe.
The defensive effort was there, though.
It was really
nice
good.
to see.
And speaking of gritty, the term that you used, I mean, the final score was 96-87. It made me think, have we gone back 20 years in the NBA? You never see final scores like that.
Right.
But I mean, I think the great news from that, and really this also applies to the Pelicans win over Memphis the other day, is that the defense is playing at a super high level. To be able to hold anyone to 87 points, and the Knicks are a good team. It's not like this is one of the teams that expected to be in the lottery and way out of contention. So they did an incredible job against Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson. The Knicks scored 12 points in the first quarter, which is another thing that you just never see. Right. I mean, that's more of like what you see in high school. So that was just across the board, the Pelicans are number one in the NBA defensively. I realize it's a very small sample; it's only 2 games.
Sure.
But still, I mean, to see them at the top of the league in that stat is really good.
Well, I was reading some power rankings today, just because again, it's nice to feel unbeaten and see what people are saying early on. CBS Sports Power Ranking had Pels at number 3. That's the highest they've ever been, I think, up from number 10. And Pels are now 2-0, and Zion hasn't attempted a shot outside the paint. All is well in NOLA. That was the quote. I agree, man. That those are, Zion's not having to get outside of his game. It seems like he is operating as he should, and he's proven that he's still a force.
Yeah, I think he had one shot against Memphis where he took a mid-range jumper and made it. He must have had like a toe in the paint. I thought he was kind of just beyond the free throw line, but if I went back and looked at it, he must have been just barely inside the paint. So that was really the only one, though. Like you said, I mean, he's been at the rim, and it's been very encouraging to see how easily he's been able to get to the basket. Easy for him.
Right.
He's been in fine form, and based on the fact that he hadn't played in an NBA game since January. It's been awesome just to see the way he's come out with these 2 games.
Yeah, and he had a lot to say about it after the game, it seemed. Yeah,
and he had a long post game press conference. He actually at one point kind of looked over to the PR Matt Ryan, I need to specify, and said something like, "Hey man, this is kind of going long." I'm sure he was joking. He was happy to talk, but yeah.
If I was Zion after that game, I'd have just been flexing the whole time I was giving interviews. Just, just both arms flexing.
But as is the case for a lot of guys on this team, I think you get better stuff when you ask them about other players on the team and not their own game. So in this clip, there's actually 2 clips here. In the first one, Zion talks about just the impact that Herb Jones has had defensively. And he actually said at the beginning of the press conference how he thinks that Herb has actually improved. So that was something that I wanted to have him kind of, delve into more deeply, which he did in this clip. And then the second clip is CJ McCollum kind of from Sunday's practice, kind of on the same topic, but I asked him about, Herb's ability to block 3-point shots, which just is astounding. NBA players have kind of a sixth sense of they know exactly how far away the defender is. They know
how the space to close them out. And Herb's not like he's like 6'11" or something, Yeah. So for him to be able to close out like that is almost a superpower.
Yeah, players just know, okay, this is exactly. It's not even. I don't think it's even a conscious thing. It's like something that they just know. Okay, if I shoot the ball this way and this quickly, and the defender is this far away, there's no way he's going to block it. So the fact that Herb is able to block threes, he got RJ Barrett in the game Saturday, is just impressive. And among the many things that he does defensively, that might be the one that's the flashiest, the one that stands out the most above, some of the stuff like taking charges that people that are diehard basketball fans like me really appreciate.
It's dirty work, but it's not pretty. Yeah.
Right. It's not going to be on a highlight reel probably.
Yeah.
But anyways, in these 2 clips, we have Zion and CJ just talking about how impressed they are with Herb and some of the aspects of his defensive game. You mentioned you don't know how it's possible that Herb has improved defensively because he was already at a super high level. Are there specific things that you're seeing from him? Is it just like the anticipation that he's been in the league for 2 years now, that he's seeing things even faster, that kind of thing?
Something I try to tell a lot of dudes when they first get in the league is scouting report. Some people have certain impacts because they're not on the scouting report. But once you get put on the scouting report and teams lock in on you, they start putting in schemes on, how to get Herb out of the play defensively. And the biggest thing I noticed with Herb is his endurance on defense. Since his rookie year, it's improved a lot. He'll fight through screens, and not only fight through them, but he's able to slip through the screens and just, be there. There was one late in the game. I don't know how he made the recovery, but he was able to block a 3-point shot, and that's a big stop in a different game. So plays like that down the line gonna mean a lot.
With Herb, have you ever seen anyone since you've been in the league that has the ability to block threes the way he does? It seems like that's rare in the NBA. And what is it about? What is about his skill set that allows him to be able to do that?
He's got good length, timing. He's athletic. He doesn't block the shot out of your hand. He lets the ball kind of leave your hand first, and he can kind of block it in the air, which is really difficult. And it takes athleticism, timing, skill. He covers, every part of the floor. Takes charges, active on the ball, off the ball. He's elite. He'll be all defensive team this year for sure.
There it is, Jim. We love Herb Jones here. He is a New Orleans favorite, and it's nice to see maybe some national media getting some eyes on Herb Jones, learning more about Herb Jones. The legend continues to grow here in New Orleans.
Yeah, and I think CJ made a good point too, where he talks about how he thinks that Herb, well, in his opinion, he's like Herb's going to be all defense this year.
Yeah.
I think if the season continues to go the way it has, and granted we're only 2 games in out of 82,
right.
But if the Pelicans win at this rate and he continues to have games like this against marquee teams, I would say that there's a really good chance that this will be the year that he finally gets on the all defense.
Right.
Not that he's worried about that, but I think everybody else would love to see that.
I would love to see that, just because if we continue winning at this rate, we'll be 82-0.
Good point.
Other than that, though, it would be nice to see Herb getting some national love, and
Yep.
so we are looking forward to seeing our old pal CP3 in his expanded new role. It seems it's weird to see him coming off the bench, but it seems like he is flourishing in that role over there at Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, he started the first 2 games before Draymond Green came back. There's been a little bit of, I don't know what you want to call it. Controversy is probably too strong of a word, but there's been a lot of debate about, what's going to happen when they have their top 6 guys available. And the decision that they made Sunday night against Houston with Draymond making his season debut was to put Chris Paul on the bench and to start really the lineup that got them to, I mentioned earlier, the championship that they won in 2022.
Right.
The 5 guys that are starting tonight is that same group of 5. So kind of going back to what they've relied on in the recent past and done obviously extremely well with. But Chris Paul he's there to try to fix, I think, some of the second unit problems that they've had in the past, where it was a combination of either Steph Curry goes out of the game and there's a huge drop off, or it's just the second unit just can't hold up and they're losing
a lot
leads.
Of youth they had that just wasn't
They tried
ready.
to develop a lot of guys that they've drafted in the last couple of years, and I think at a certain point they realized, like, yeah, it's great to develop for the future, but
this is
we're
not
trying
the window.
Right, we're trying to win a championship, as many championships as we possibly can. So from that standpoint, I think it makes sense, and I am curious to see, the impact of him with Chris Paul. This will only be his second game of his entire NBA career coming off the bench.
Yeah, and I'm also curious to see the fan reaction to Chris Paul when he's coming in there, because I don't know New Orleanians, it seems like divided, whether they boo, whether they cheer. It's going to be, I think maybe the Golden State emblem on the front of the jersey might create a few more boos.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say in reaction to what you mentioned. I feel like as long as he's on a team that's kind of a nemesis of the Pelicans to some degree. I mean, if he played in the East for some random team, maybe people would start to be like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. He's on the Pistons or whatever.
Good to see you.
But yeah, I think as long as he's on Golden State,
especially a contending team in the West,
and a team that beat the Pelicans twice in the playoffs over the last 7-8 years.
You had to bring it up.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. All right, I'm gonna be strong. I still feel good though, man. And if you haven't been looking out for it, you gotta check out Jim's poll over on X. That is Twitter, if you didn't know. That's what it's called now. And you've always got a new thing you're throwing out there, casting for the people to bite on. And some fun stuff this week, Jim.
Yeah, I think on Mondays, it might not be every Monday. It might depend a little bit on the game schedule, but
depends on how hungover Jim is.
Well, that too. Yeah. That's more important.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put out a player of the week poll for the Pelicans. There might be some weeks where I resist having a poll because I didn't appreciate the way that they played the previous week. Yeah. But luckily,
you don't want to troll yourself.
Luckily, this is not the case. There was no hesitation. This was an excellent week 1 for the Pelicans. Yeah. They went 2-0, obviously. And so in the player of the week poll, which will close right around tip-off tonight, it's kind of a countdown to tip-off. The 4 players on there are Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, C.J. McCollum, Zion Williamson. And as we record this Monday morning, all 4 players have over 20% of votes, which is very odd. You usually see one guy kind of break out.
Parity.
And so I like that because it just shows you that it's not the case where one guy had to carry the load and had to do everything and everyone else kind of contributed little scraps here and there. I mean, those 4 guys I mentioned, and that doesn't include everyone that made big contributions, but that's all X will allow is 4 options. They all had pretty good first weeks. I want to quote. I also let people comment if they would like and
nice, yeah.
Give write-in votes. At Bike Weiss, his comment was he was giving it to C.J. McCollum for playing his role perfectly, not trying to do too much, making the most of his shots, and helping keep a cohesive unit. So
it's been a steady hand.
Good comment about C.J. He's off to a good start 3-point shooting-wise, and so that's been a big spark. But, yeah, like you said, vote. Yeah, vote early, vote often. Actually, they probably only let you vote once on X, but that's
depending
okay.
on how many accounts you have. Who knows? Create some, pump up those
that's
numbers.
True. That's true.
Zion and BI, look, they combined for 50 points. Easy to vote for them, but I like that under the radar little the steady hand of C.J. McCollum. And I sense something there. If you check your keys to the game there, C.J. McCollum might be a player to watch tonight.
Yes, he's going to be my player to watch for week 2 as well. Now, for tonight's game against Golden State, he and Herb Jones, I mentioned them because they're going up against Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, so that's a pretty compelling watch. But the interesting thing about the rest of this week for the Pelicans is they play Oklahoma City on Wednesday, which obviously has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, was a top 5 MVP. Thursday, Cade Cunningham for Detroit is probably their best player. He's a guard as well. And then Saturday, Atlanta comes in here, and they have Trey Young and DeJounte Murray. So CJ I have as my player to watch just based on the fact that there's so many kind of tasty, juicy matchups coming up, if I can use one of your terms.
Old Juicy Jim with the juice here, man.
And by the way, too, quickly to go back to last week, my player to watch was Dyson Daniels. I thought he got off to a pretty good start. I mean, he's showing a lot of the kind of less flashy parts of the game that he's developing in. Some of the rebounding, the defense is really good. The playmaking, the ball handling. Obviously, though, the shooting is something that he's got to improve. He had some struggles at the free throw line. But nonetheless, if you're the player to watch and the team goes undefeated during that stretch, we will tip our caps to you.
We'll keep watching you, and look, he's still growing into a new body. It's got to be weird feeling like a pod person who grew like 8 inches and 40 pounds in a summer. It's been a minute since I've gained 40 pounds in the summer, but I stopped growing. So
still waiting for the inches.
Yeah, it's just, I don't need the girth. I need the height. But here we go, Pels fans. It's going to be another fun one tonight. If you wanted excitement, there is no shortage of it. The first 2 games have been barn burners in terms of opponents, and now the Golden State Warriors. Hopefully we'll hear from you after the game as well, maybe.
Yeah, I would love to stop by, especially if things go well. But either way, I'm not a front runner. I'd like to be there either way, even if things don't go well. But yeah, looking forward to this game. I feel like there aren't that many tickets left as we record this. So yeah, it's going to be packed. I really liked the atmosphere Saturday. It was a very festive crowd, I thought. Tonight I think will be festive as well, but I think there'll be a little bit more intensity piled on just based on what we talked about at that Golden State is on the court tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Sharpen your fangs, Pelicans fans. We want to see you out and about. Again, like Jim said, it seemed like the atmosphere was fully corrected. And we want to see you filling the blender. Big thanks to Mr. Jim Eichenhofer for all his hard work, nose constantly to the grindstone. Big thanks to you for listening to the Pelicans podcast. We appreciate you so very much. Please tell your friends and pals. We will talk to you once again on Wednesday. But until then, go Pelicans!
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time right here